Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be checking out Space Ghost Issue 1 by David Pepose and Jonathan Lau. More mysteries are revealed this issue as David Pepose gives us a great look into the life of Space Ghost, specifically the tragic life he had before he became the Ghost. The book opens with the tragic death of his family after his planet is invaded by aliens. This first page is interesting to me for a number of reasons, but first and foremost is that it actually gives Space Ghost an actual name. His name is Dax. I never knew he actually had one. I don't think he is. I think this is something new for this comic. I know the Coast to Coast one did have one. They called him Tad or Thaddeus or something, but I like that this is sort of, I guess, a quote-unquote canon name for him now. I'm cool with it because it, along with the family he has that we see in this that actually die in the first page, it kind of humanizes the character a little bit, so it makes him a bit more than just an imposing costume. It also sets up his dynamic with Jace and Jan, the kids he rescued from the research lab last issue. Space Ghost takes the kids and their pet monkey Blip back to Ghost Planet, Space Ghost's version of the Bat Cave, which is a giant asteroid made up of the remains of various crashed ships and rocks, although it's very implied by the visuals that it might actually be the remains of Dax's homeworld, and we'll get to that a little bit later in this review. At first, Space Ghost is quite cold towards the kids, wanting them to keep quiet, not touch anything, and kind of stay out of his lane. But of course, Jace is really just interested in everything Space Ghost, especially his costume and weapons. I love the little bits of world building that David does with the background of these sequences. Like in the first page, we learn that Dax and his wife were involved in terraforming on their planet, and then we learn from Space Ghost and Jace that his power bands are terraforming gauntlets, so obviously parts of his past life are being reused here to help fight crime. Eventually, Space Ghost has to leave the base to deal with an oncoming asteroid belt, and he does it with some glee, being able to take his frustrations with constantly questioning kids out on the rocks. Through the sequence, we also get a quick sort of origin for Space Ghost and how he created his gauntlets and ship, taking his cape from his destroyed world's flag, a very Superman thing to do, and forming it into his costume. The kids also learned that the planet they are on used to be called Vector and was a mining colony that mined the indestructible mineral called styranitanium, but the planet was left uninhabitable by a radiation leak. This is some real neat storytelling that paints a larger picture, since obviously we've seen that what happened to Dax's planet was not that at all, and it was invaded by someone, no doubt by RoboCorp, and probably for its precious minerals. That's speculation on my part, but it seems pretty in line with where Pepose is taking the story, with RoboCorp being the big main villain of this arc and being into some really shady stuff, as well as it ties into the kids' story quite nicely, as their parents were killed and their station was attacked by people sent by RoboCorp to obtain Blip and the little AI chip he has in his brain. Space Ghost's blasting of the rocks, meanwhile, ends up awakening something within one of them, an energy monster of some type, and while Jan digs a little deeper into Space Ghost's past through his computers, Jace and Blip decide to go on a joyride in Space Ghost's ship and are attacked by the strange energy monster that Space Ghost woke up. Space Ghost tries to help out, but the monster ends up sucking the energy from his gauntlets. Jace and Jan get to flex their scientific knowledge and quick thinking processes during this sequence quite a fair bit, and they are able to get Space Ghost back into the base to the communications tower, where Jan is able to convert all of the monster's pent-up energy into pure radio waves and expel it through the tower and into the next solar system. This is quite some pure Saturday morning cartoon sci-fi nonsense, and I absolutely love it. I don't question it at all because of the ridiculousness of these characters already. It just fits with what these characters can and will do. Thanks to the kids' quick thinking, Space Ghost decides to let them help him, and he gives them their very own costumes and weapons, agreeing to train them to be superheroes like him. Now, this is something I actually thought was going to happen at the end of the first arc, after they've gone through like their big adventure, and he decides, oh, these kids have nowhere to go, I'll train them up myself and give them a home. But I like that we're getting to it in the second issue, since it means now we can just kind of get into the story and the investigation into RoboCorp and have a good old sci-fi adventure with Space Ghost and his new team. I also like the sort of emotional connection and reasoning behind it, since while it's not said, it's very clear that Space Ghost of course misses his family and sees an opportunity here with these children to help give them a chance to have a family, you know, something that he didn't get, something that he lost. And I like that idea that he's trying to make up for the loss of his family by not really starting a new one, but just helping another family find their way in the universe. Space Ghost issue 2 was another damn fine issue from David Pepose and Jonathan Lau. I thoroughly enjoyed the little bit of action we got here, and I love how much of the backstory of Space Ghost was actually explored and kind of cracked open. We got a fair amount of detail from these scenes about his origin and who he is, but also a lot was left still in the mystery and still shrouded in mystery, which I imagine we'll see more of as the book goes on. I'm looking forward to Jason, Jan, and Little Blip joining Space Ghost in his adventures, and I'm intrigued to see what this whole RoboCorp investigation conspiracy is and where that will lead Space Ghost and his team. I'm going to give this issue a 9 out of 10.